Okay guys, so today we're moving on to 4.6. Now on 4.6, we're going to be doing more factoring. Factoring never goes away from here on out, but we're gonna add a little more to it. So now instead of just factoring, we're actually gonna take it one more step and we're going to solve those factors. So we need to discuss a few things before I do some examples. First of all, factoring gives you factors, okay, not solutions. Remember, when we factor, I get two factors. So something like x plus 4 and maybe 2x plus 7. Okay, that's what we've been doing for the last several days. We've been factoring. Factoring gives us factors. So x plus 3 is a factor. Now, if I say something like x equals negative 3, that is what we call a solution. So what happens is I take this factor, this x plus 3 factor, and I set it equal to 0, and I just solve it to get a solution of x equals negative 3. So I'm able to go from factors to solutions, and that's what we're going to do today. So we're going to have to do a few things. We're going to have to factor, then we're going to have to find the solution. Now, there's only a couple added steps that we have to do. The first thing that we need to do today, they're not going to give us everything in standard form. Remember, our standard form is that ax squared plus bx plus c. They're going to give it to us where it's not on the same side. So we're going to have to make sure everything goes on the same side. So in this example here, I'm going to actually move this negative 3x squared to the other side. And I'm going to write it in standard form. So 3x squared minus x plus 4. And it equals 0. I don't have to worry about this really right now. And then I can go ahead and I can factor that. After I got my factors, then I'm going to set them both equal to 0, and I'm going to solve. You will have multiple answers today, probably 2 in each of these questions, okay? So we're going to do a few examples so that you can see what I'm talking about here. Now, our first example, v squared minus 40 equals 3v. Well, if you notice, this 3v is over here on this right side, and I don't want it to be. Right now, it's a positive 3v, so I'm going to subtract it and move it over. So now I have v squared minus 3v minus 40. So everything is on the same side. That's my step 1. And now I can factor. Well, luckily, I don't have anything in front of the v squared. So I'm going to draw my factors. Each factor gets a v. And then I have to go back to that old factoring stuff. I'm going to say the product of negative 40 has to have a sum of negative 3. Now, because the product is negative, I know that 1 is positive and 1 is negative. But because the sum is negative 3, I know that my larger number is negative. So if I start listing some factors, 1 and 40, let's see, 2 and 20, 4 and 10, 5 and 8. Remember, the larger number is negative. Negative 8 plus 5 does give me negative 3. So I'm going to say positive 5, negative 8. So I have my factors. This is what we've done for days. Now I've got my factors. I've just got to add a step today, and I'm going to set these both equal to 0, and I'm going to solve. So to solve this, I subtract the 5. So v equals -5. This one, I add the 8. V equals 8. 2 answers today. So I make sure everything is on the same side. I factor, and then I set those factors equal to 0, and I solve. Those are my 3 steps today. Make sure everything is on the same side, factor, set those factors equal to 0, and solve. So let's look at another one. Here we go. We got 8x squared minus 240 equals 8x. Now, that 8x is on the wrong side, so it's a positive 8x right now. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract it over here so that I get everything on the same side. Then I can start my factoring process. Now, if I look at this, I see that I have an 8 in common. So the very first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out an 8, divide everything by 8, so that I have x squared minus x minus 30. Now, I can technically get rid of this 8 and move it to the other side, because remember, this actually equals 0 over here. So if I just divide that 8 out over here, it still is 0, so it technically just goes away. So I'm looking at this x squared minus x minus 30 to factor. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my factors. Each factor gets an x. And then I'm going to look. So I want a product of -30. That gives me a sum of -1. Now, because my product is negative, I know that 1 is positive, 1 is negative. Because the sum is -1, my larger number is negative. So 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, 5 and 6. So that gives me a -1. So I'm going to say plus 5 minus 6. Now I'm not done. Remember, today I have to set these equal to 0, and I have to solve. This is really the only new step other than making sure everything's on the same side. So x equals -5 and x equals 6. 2 answers today. Got to take the factors down and make them solutions today. Remember, this is what I call a factor. This is what I call a solution. And looky there, boys and girls. I can no longer write on it. Good thing I finished that there. All right, this is what we're doing today.